So hopefully it's just more going to be like a chat a little bit if somebody is curious to know more or, after I've given a short run through of everything. So I hope there's going to be a lot of questions. It's not going to be super technical, but we can definitely dive into it if you want. Yes, it's all good. So we in the company Strøm, I'm actually curious, does anyone know the app at all?
Oh yes.
Yes?
I use it every day.
Awesome.
Oh, yes.
Great. Right now we are just two people, me and Anne. Anne has a background as a UX designer, and I have been iOS developer for 12, 13 years, I think. So it's very much our craft to build digital products. The whole motivation to build this app is to help this awesome transition that we're all going through in terms of energy, making it more renewable and in general just more smart. And we want to help that transition with a super user-centric app experience, so everyone can be smarter about their energy habits. And the way we do it right now is that the first and foremost thing is electricity prices, and I'll come back to the whole history about that. But that's kind of the main feature of the app right now, which seems pretty simple. But in my honest opinion, before Strøm, it was not so simple. So we can show you the current prices and tomorrow's prices, and then we also have like a machine learning based 7-day forecast as well. So you can look a little bit into the future. Then we give a lot of insights into your consumption in your household, so you can see, by the hour, when did I use a lot of electricity. We can also, with some extra hardware on your electricity meter, we can show you like live how much energy you're consuming right now with like Speedo. And then the final purple one on the end is like combining all this consumption data and the prices we have. We can like do a continuously updating like virtual electricity bill, so you can like all the time see exactly how much money you spent down to the øre, because we know all the tariffs and charges and all that. And for some people that is pay on a quarterly basis, like can sometimes be a like not so good surprise when the bill comes in the door. So having it continuously updating for some people is very attractive. Then we also provide insights into how electricity is produced in the area you live in. There are a lot of ways to produce electricity: gas, oil, wind, solar, biomass, nuclear. And that, of course, all in the end ends up like how green is the electricity. In Denmark, it's relatively green most of the time, but it can vary a lot. Like these days, it's been blowing a lot, the wind, so it's been very green and pretty cheap, which is awesome, and you can follow that here. And then we can also then combine this, like the energy mix in the grid, with your live consumption, and then see exactly what is your like CO2 footprint right now, how much CO2 is your household producing. And right now, we have around 200,000 weekly active users in the app. It's live in 3 countries: Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. The biggest one is Denmark. So these features I just showed is the ones we have right now, and for the past couple of months we've been working on a very big new feature. It's definitely our biggest bet. It's very close to launch. Hopefully, we've been user testing for the last month or so. And that is smart charging, because in order to do help with this big transition, we want to, as I mentioned before, help make it awesome and smart. And we think we want to tackle the biggest one first, because we think we can have the biggest impact there. And there's a huge transition going on with a lot of people getting EVs right now. And when people get an EV, it will be by far the biggest single consumer of electricity in the household. So if you can optimize that to be either cheaper or greener, there's a lot of gains to have there. So very soon we'll launch a feature where you basically connect directly to your car, and then all you have to do is plug it in, and we'll take care of the rest and make sure that it charges at the most optimum time. And you'll of course get a lot of data insights of how much energy you've consumed and how much it cost and how much you saved by using this feature and so on. Yeah, so that was just a quick run through of the features. Just to briefly touch on the technologies, very high level. It's 100% Swift UI from top to bottom, for better or for worse. mostly for good, but of course there are some hiccups every once in a while. But it's really, and I'll come back to that in a moment, but it's using Swift UI allows for just a completely different speed compared to the old UI kit days, especially when I'm the only one who's developing the app, so it just means that I can do more, is what I am left with. Yeah. Then we actually also have a backend, which is also Swift, and it's based on Vapor 3 and hosted on Heroku. And that's just super nice because I can share a lot of code between, and sometimes, like especially in the beginning, I did everything just in the app, and then when it blew up, I had to move some stuff to the server, and then I could just copy paste a lot of it, which was very handy. Then, as you can see, we're very heavily relying on the native design system, and again, just like Swift UI, that means a lot of speed for us. Also, it means a lot of recognizability for the end users, and we also have a big portion of our demography is in the more older segment of people. So they like when it's familiar, and they also very much like all the accessibility features that comes with it, like bold text and high contrast and all that stuff, which you all get for free when you use all the native stuff with Swift UI. So we get a lot of things for free by doing that, and we have to spend less time on doing custom things. And like in the past, I always loved doing custom things on iOS. I really did, but here it just gives so much extra and more speed, more capacity for development. Of course, we then also use SF symbols, and we also have a bunch of custom symbols in SF symbols. But again, it just interweaves so nicely with everything when being native. As I'll come back to in a moment, we have like some paid stuff in the app, and we use RevenueCat to handle that, just so we don't have to do all that work. I mean, Apple has done better and better over the years, but RevenueCat just abstracts things way more, I think. And then also with a lot of users comes a lot of questions and suggestions, so we also integrated Intercom as a support chat feature, which is very heavily used, and it takes very good care of all our awesome users. I have a lot of ideas. Yeah, so that was just a quick overview. And as I said, I'll come back to the business model of it. So we are working full-time on it, and the way we make things go round is with like 3 sources of revenue. It is ads, so that's display ads from AdMob, Google AdMob, just the tiny little banners mostly. But with volume comes more revenue, so that's basically why that's even feasible. Then we have some premium features or pro features, like the calculation of cost of your consumption, and the 7-day forecast and smart charging will also be a paid feature. And those are, you can actually right now both choose subscription-based or like one-time lifetime fee. And then we also have had a bunch of different partnerships over the course of the projects. Like it could be like lead generation or revenue sharing or all kinds of different things. Basically, we can address, or we want to address, any private household, because everyone uses electricity, and then therefore we can basically help everyone, which gives a nice, large, addressable market. And just to give you an insight into how it all got going, it actually just started as a hobby project. It was like in the spring of last year. I have had an EV for many years, and I was very heavily trying to optimize when to charge it, because I'm a nerd. And there was an app already that had to close down for reasons, and so the app disappeared, and I was like, there has to be some alternatives, because it's super simple to do. There were alternatives. I didn't like them, so I just made my own, and I also wanted to do a pure Swift UI app from the ground up, just for fun. So I did that and put it on the App Store. Very simple to begin with. It organically grew nice and steady, with a couple hundred downloads a day. But then, as you may recall, something crazy happened, more or less about a year ago from now, which was a huge energy crisis in Europe, and then everything exploded, and it went like this, in a pretty short amount of time. It became more or less everybody's like the household app, and it created a lot of headlines and all kinds of pages, and I even got to go on TV to talk about all this crazy stuff. But what I think is most awesome is by the end of 2022 last year, when Apple made their top apps, we were actually all in all number 3, even though we had only like been crazy for at that point 5 months. So that was pretty awesome. And since then, a lot of crazy things have happened. We went full time on it back in December last year. Both of us, we knew each other from our previous workplace where we worked together. And then we've also now, we had the chance to actually present to the EU Commission, because all this data that we show in the app is like very country by country specific, and there's no like standard formats or anything, and it's like integrations are horrible everywhere. So that's also why we haven't just expanded to everywhere. But thankfully, the EU is aware of this, and they are trying to work on more standardized data sharing and formats. So we're now part of that in a consortium called EDI, where they try to kind of define that, which is super cool. And then also earlier this year, we were lucky enough to be selected for the People's Choice Award at Danish Digital Awards, which was a very nice surprise. But we were just super happy to help so many people. And then last, but certainly not least, we had a pretty crazy invite last week, which was to meet and greet and show our app to this little guy. There was, I don't know how to describe it. It was very crazy, and I don't know how it happened, but it did. And we, like both Anna and I, are super huge Apple fanboys, so being able to do that was, big honor, let's to say the least. And that's actually just it for the quick intro of that little story. So I'm very happy to talk more if you are curious about anything. Yes?
When you first started the project, were you, like, my question is, were you still maybe employed full time?
Yes. So we both worked at Undo Insurance here in Copenhagen, and that's why it was a hobby project for like, I don't know, was it 9 months, I think. So I made the first version in around April last year, and then it exploded in August, and then we went full time in December. So it was a hobby project until December. Yeah.
Have you considered other different platforms, because this is a great opportunity for Apple TV, Apple Watch? I think it would be
Yes.
Apple TV.
Yes, that's a good. Actually, Apple TV, I haven't even thought myself, but you're actually right. I mean, the cool thing about using SwiftUI and all the native stuff is it's super duper portable, and also Vision OS, which I'm very curious to see how it looks there. So hopefully that would be easy. I mean, it's basically just come down to priorities, because there's so much we want to do, and just being one guy developing that, you can only do so much, and you want to have the biggest impact. So it's a balance. And also, I just wanted to mention, this is not like a how to do your own app and live off of it, because this is obviously the perfect storm of things happening, and I did not expect it. It was just a hobby project, and it's just super amazing. So, yes. Yes?
You haven't seen any kind of integration with the HomeKit?
Oof, good question. Yeah, that's one of the most occurring questions we have. Not yet. It is very, very high on the wish list, and I think for me it's a lot about that kind of market maturing to a point where it's few very broad-reaching technologies instead of a lot of indie stuff going on. It seems now with Matter and Thread and so on that we are kind of stabilizing and agreeing how to do things. And so when we can agree how to do things, then it's more easy to approach that instead of having to do Home Assistant and Google Home and HomeKit and all that stuff. So hopefully when it's a little bit more mature, we can do something. But yeah, it's totally obvious, and we get a lot of requests for that. Yeah. Yes.
Question for the backend.
Yes.
Obvious benefits from code sharing and stuff.
Yeah.
Challenges.
Challenges. I mean, Swift as a backend is not super common. So finding solutions to things is a little bit of, or a bit of a niche. and like you have to go into the corners of the internet. But I think actually Vapor has done a great job. Back in the day I also tried Perfect, I think it was called, like a few years ago, and especially in the beginning of the years it was super rough to get things running. But now when multiple hosting services like Heroku, they have native support for it and all that, I think it was surprisingly easy to set up, and Vapor has a lot of basic things. They have database support, all the web server functionality you expect, authentication, so many things are just built in, so you can get very far with the basics, and I was pleasantly surprised about that. Yeah. But I know I'm not gonna, if we ever grow a lot, I'm not gonna hire probably a lot of Swift people just to do that. I don't know. We'll see if we have to re-implement it someday. It's nice for me because I can do both now. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
How is it
Come up here.
designer and UX person to work with something that is not custom? Because quite often see when you start a new project, oh, I got this custom tab up here or custom button and so on. And now your creativity is within boundaries, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
How is it to work like that?
I actually don't think I see it that way, but I understand how you explain it there. I think one of the cornerstones of a good UX and usability is that something is recognizable and it's consistent, and you get that kind of just off the plate if you use this way of designing. And as Philip also said, we have a lot of our core users are people who are more mature. I would say it would be men above 50 who has a house, who has an EV, who has installed solar panels and have everything going and is very considerate about energy, but maybe they're not. They like that things look similar across the platforms that they're using. So I actually think that the benefits of it is bigger than having to do custom things all the time. And I would also say that we do also add some custom things on top of it, so it's not just looks like this is just something Apple pushed out in your hands. But I like the consistency more than doing a lot of custom things just to do custom things, because you can say, oh, we designed this component, but actually the component that Apple has or that you've seen before is great. So why do it all over again? Yeah.
It's very much allows for more capacity, because and as a UX designer, but I'm actually, if you want to call it, the UI side of the design, and I'm not a crazy designer myself. So having all of this is like a great starting point. The full-fledged design system with all the fonts and all the sizes, all the colors, dark mode, light mode. It's just it allows someone like me to actually do this, which is amazing.
Yeah, and from the other side, I don't have to kind of a manual to figure out how your stuff works.
No.
Yeah, from the user side. Yeah. It feels very familiar, and yes. So that's definitely a huge plus for us in our case. Yeah. Yes.
Other than this compatibility between the data coming from different countries, is there any legal or regulatory or technical reason that you don't distribute it, for example, in the Brazilian App Store?
No.
Is it Brazilian? I do have a Danish an account in the Danish App Store, but I mainly use my old Brazilian.
Okay. So you mean just in general in the App Store? No. That's actually just a leftover from back when it was a hobby project, because, I think at one point I was like, I don't want all kind of weird people downloading and be like, why doesn't it work here? Because I didn't want to deal with that. So I was just like, okay, well, I know it's gonna work in Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, so I'll just make it there. But no, there's technically no reason, and you're not the first one to say it. So I know the pain, and probably we can just open it up. It won't be a problem. There's no bigger thought to it, honestly. Yeah.
What about cost?
Yes.
And you become indie or someone who doesn't have every month's salary. So how do you live with that? Especially both of you. So
I mean, so far we've been lucky enough that is not an issue. We're basically breaking even, more or less. That's also why we're not just hiring a lot of people, because we're trying to make the most of it as long as we can. And we've also been approached by investors and the like, because they wanted to invest in it. And there's many reasons why we've ended up saying no thank you. First of all, it's like I really like to make my own decisions, or not be forced into certain situations. I have, in all my previous jobs, I've worked in startups as iOS developer, and I love startups by all my heart. But I've also seen all the both good and bad sides of the investor party going on, and I was just like, this time when we actually have the opportunity right now to not do it, I'm really curious to try that and see how that works out. And so far it's working. We'll see if it continues, and we may change our mind. But being our own master is a very, very nice feeling, I have to say. Surprisingly nice. Yes.
Can recommend.
Yes. like for instance, the smart charging feature. It was something we had like on our to-do for basically since the beginning, because that's what actually got the project started. But that's another story. But the actual decision to start doing it was like, it was made like overnight. I just basically started implementing it because I just wanted to do it. And yeah, that would not have been the case in many other situations. You would have to have like stakeholders and agree that this is a good idea and good investment. I don't care, I'm gonna do it. And that's just, yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes?
Could you share something about your experience with testing and getting so many users
Yes.
using your app and releasing, making mistakes?
Oh my goodness. I have to admit, I'm also a little bit of a cowboy when it comes to that.
A little bit?
Yes. I've never been good at like automated testing and all these things and regression tests, and like I do a lot of manual testing. We test a lot, and we also have a large group of people in like a user panel. Yes, yeah. In test flight, which we can ship things to beforehand, which we try to do, especially with big things. But we have made a lot of poo-poo shipping things, and I just did a quick hotfix, and then something else blew up entirely. And when 100,000 people a day use it, we definitely get alerted that something is not working.
But that's where it's good we have intercom, so we will know that things are up, because people, when we have so many users, you will know immediately something happened here, and you're like, fuck, what is it? And we will fix it. And then people are super kind, because then you tell them, shit, we fucked up, I'm so sorry, we'll fix it, get the next version, or force close your app and go back, and then it'll be okay again.
I think the biggest time we did something, I was not introducing a bug, that was introducing a feature which went completely insane, and I've never tried anything like it. That's when we introduced paid features. Holy moly. That created a lot of stir in the little pond of Denmark. Because up until November last year, everything had been free, and that was all great. And then we introduced paid features, and because it was so up in the media, then like it went all the way to Ekstrabladet, and now you have to pay for this app. And even though it was just a small subset of features, and people started writing on Nationen and directly to us that we were like greedy fuckheads, and like, what are we thinking about? That blew up way, way, way more than I had ever anticipated. It only lasted a week or two, but it was very, very stressful in that 2 weeks. And also, I had never tried to do paid features in any app before, so all the technologies and stuff was also new, and I was super scared that it would even work. So it was, that was very crazy in that period.
I also think in general, in regards to testing, we do a lot of user testing as well.
Yeah.
So that's how we also make sure that what we are creating is something that will create value in the end for our users, but it's also something that is working properly and people find it intuitive before we ship it in an app store. Yeah. So we do a lot of those testing, both like driving out to our actual users, meeting them in their homes and being like, hey, try our newest feature, also doing it online, also doing it remotely. We do a lot of testing. Yeah. And that's just also because we believe that...
But that's for the bigger features.
That's for the bigger features, but we kind of try to do it
Yes.
all the way through, so we make sure that it makes sense.
Can I follow that up with
Yes.
asking about your payment model? Because
Yes.
it seems like you're using quite a few
Yes.
options in there.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Subscription,
Yes.
one-time payment.
Yes.
Is that something you're also exploring? Do you think
Yes.
you found the golden path? Or is it
Yes,
still
up here.
trying
No,
to-
it's honestly, you're very right to ask that question, because it was the first time that I did any kind of payment, because I've always worked on apps that were free by default. So and thinking about all the models to do it, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I definitely want subscriptions because I want recurring revenue, but I also know a lot of people hate subscriptions, like it's the worst thing ever invented. So then I guess we have to do some lifetime or one-stop purchase things, and then I kind of overthought it it's definitely not optimal, and we've thought many times to simplify it.
Yeah.
We've kind of prioritized to do some other things.
Yeah.
But it could definitely be prioritized. A curious thing we've learned is that especially Danes, they really hate subscriptions.
Yeah.
like compared to Norway and Sweden, they really hate it.
Yeah.
Because we actually did for a while did an A/B test to see where we removed the lifetime thing, and boy did we get told where did that go, because they were very not happy about that.
You should have tried moving the other thing.
Removing the other thing.
Subscription and only keeping
Remove the subscription and raise the price for the life.
Yeah.
I also think we should raise the price, but that's another thing.
Yeah, but I'm actually curious because I'm actually curious your argument for that, because from a business point of view, I totally see from the user point of view, it's awesome to just have a one-time purchase and you're done with it. I would do that myself as well. But from a business point of view, it's nice to know that money will be coming the next month as well.
Correct.
Right? I mean,
There are some apps has different one-time payments, and when they get a newest feature, they have to pay another one-time payment.
Yeah.
It's like feature-based.
That's
Yeah.
also a bit.
that's
But they won't introduce new feature every month or
No,
something. It's
no, yeah.
But with
yearly
this-
or 2
yeah.
year.
It's a super complex topic, I think, and there are so many different variations of what you can do and variations of what people expect. So it's
But
Yeah.
it's also because in general it's pretty radical that you have an app
Yes.
where you have to pay.
Yeah.
Because we all used to having free
Yeah, like
apps. and they are
90%.
connected to a company, and then we kind of get drawn into it. But
most apps are subsidized today.
exactly.
So that's also why I never expected that this would even be possible anymore, to have an app that you could live from. I thought that was only back in the early days of the App Store. But yes.
What percentage of the users are actually paying?
Ooh, yeah, I think it's actually been a while since I checked those numbers because I've been deep in something else. I think it's around. So it depends on what you measure it by, but I think it's yes. So I would say it's around 7-8%. Yeah. 7 to 8. No. I wish. That would be amazing. Then we would be in Bahamas. Yes?
As has been coded in Swift UI,
Yes.
Swift UI being more pushable from designers,
Yes.
has there been any talks about co-creating some of the UI mockups?
Well, the thing is, I actually do most of the design as well. So, I'm actually a bit fluent. Like sometimes I start in Figma, sometimes I start in Swift UI. It a little bit depends on the complexity of the component, because sometimes it's literally just easier to do it straight in Swift UI and just quickly mock something up. But when you really have to do a lot of variations and compare them side by side and more complexity, then Figma is more appropriate, I think. So, but yeah, definitely Swift UI can be used for prototyping for that, or like
Is
design
it something
mockup.
the UX designer has thought about?
I'm not going into that area. I think it sounds cool, but I think I will stick to my design principles and my user research, and on that lane.
Yeah.
It sounds cool, but I don't think I'll go there.
Yes.
Well, first of all, congratulations to both of you for whatever you achieved in such a short amount of time, with all the courage it took to just go the steady income
Yeah.
to the regular job. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I know we already touched upon a few points on what has been the process so far, what could be the next steps and so on. But just let's think about that part, because I'm sure that of course you have most of your time dedicated to coding, hopefully, hopefully still. But more and more inputs come from everywhere for you to just think of something else.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, like, if you were to consider what are the factors or blockers or anyway the steps that you envision could be realistically what you would be focusing on in the next few months. Like, let's not talk about years like this.
You said blockers?
Factors to consider to what could be the further growth of the content.
I mean, I definitely, especially here in the past couple of months when we've been working on this new smart charging thing, which is relatively big of a feature, only for 2 people to handle. I'm definitely at least starting to feel the strain being very few people, and the thought of having more people to do things is getting more and more a bigger appetite for that. So that's definitely one thing. We are still torn about how to do it and what approach to take in that regard. And the thing is also because we really want to get like a full solution here about energy in the private household, and there are so many things we're still missing. There's like solar, PV cells, batteries, heat pumps, all kinds of things, and they are all big projects on their own. And having that all in one place and both developing new things and maintaining the old things and expanding the old things, it becomes a bigger task for sure. And that's definitely one, like a bottleneck I see.
Just to follow up.
Yes.
Just because I can imagine, of course, if you're boldly deciding not to go into the investment thing. So of course, then subscription would be the natural alternative. So in that case, would it be marketing? Would it be something along those lines to make sure you actually have a larger subscription base, and then of course more revenue you can grow and so on?
Yeah.
I think we also.
I don't know if it's either or. If there are actually alternatives.
I don't. Nothing is either or.
I think we have considered spending some money on marketing, at least on these bigger features that we are releasing to make sure that people know that it's available in our app. But I also think that the initiatives that we have with EU, like expanding to other countries, I know that will of course take time, but that's also something that might help us gaining a bigger traction and more users going forward. So I think there's a lot of things going on that we want to achieve.
The whole marketing thing is very interesting for this case, I personally think, because we've so far used zero money on marketing, but obviously only because of the environment. Otherwise, it wouldn't have ended like this. And like between the two of us, we are very, very product-focused people. We don't think very much marketing terms, and so we've been lucky that we didn't have to prioritize it. But I don't know if we can keep on doing that. So far, like, of course, we don't have as many active users as we did 1 year ago when it was the craziest, but we still have a lot. We still have quite a big reach, and I hope we can still ride that wave a little bit before we need to go to that. That's kind of where we're at right now. But that's also, derived from our, our capabilities. Yes?
With all these thoughts of growing and going to different countries, have you thought about renaming the app?
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. It's actually, we have a name. We're not going to say it. But it's like, and this is one of the things where I'm like, shouldn't we just rename it now? Because that we can do. But there probably are some things we should do in order to like help people know that we've changed the name. But yes, we definitely want to change the name. It's actually had multiple names along the ride, but we definitely want to have a more international name. Yes, it's coming.
It's coming.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit about data sources.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Are there freely available public APIs?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
You also mentioned something about if you had a device in your home, you could
yeah.
get this slide.
Yes. So it's a mix. Some data is publicly available, and all data that is publicly available we also provide for free. We don't charge anything for that. In that case, we basically just prettify it and make it more digestible for people. and that's like the electricity prices and your household historic consumption. But in the average household here in Denmark, the data actually is like at least a day, oftentimes 2 days delayed, because of how their setup is, and we're actually on the forefront in the world in that. It turns out, which is crazy, but it's still 2 days delayed. So for the live data, we have collaborated with a hardware company that provides the hardware, and then we use their API for that data. So that's of course proprietary. For the energy source data, most of it is actually technically available in Denmark for free, but when you have to take into account the energy we import from Sweden and Norway and Jutland and on Zealand, then it's not publicly available, and then we have an agreement with Electricity Maps to provide that data, and that is then also proprietary and not free, but we provide it for free. What else do we have?
The machine learning?
Yes, that's also something where we worked. That's actually just one dude who's doing that as a hobby thing as well, but that's proprietary. Yeah.
What about the data in Sweden or Norway?
Yeah. So in Norway and Sweden, that's actually a good question, because it's actually a more limited app right now in Norway and Sweden, because we don't have all the data. We have the prices, and we have the energy like the
energy mix.
Yeah, the energy mix data available there. So it doesn't have the consumption part in Norway and Sweden, and that's because they have their own systems. Where and then Sweden you have to use BankID, and Norway you have something else, and we just. It's not been a priority to do that. We are hoping that with the EU initiative, that all that will be more easily shared, and like the authentication will be, I don't know, something else. Yeah, probably. Yeah, but building one integration per country is also like, so it's yeah.
One question. So there's a lot going on. Like you just named a lot of things that you guys have taken care of. How do you manage all of this? And another kind of follow-up questions like, what was the biggest transition from like doing it with hobby to work full time? You know, I'm sure you're just working afternoon or something. Starting my day working on this.
What was the first question again? How do you manage? How do we manage?
How do you manage all these things? But it's just two of you. Like,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know. We are very passionate people.
But we also work very structured. Like we have places where we try to like document and make sure that we like keep track of things. So we also, although we're
also spontaneous.
Yeah, we are spontaneous, but it's just we also try to keep track of the projects and the to-do. So we do have kind of a Sana board, which sounds like you're two people, but it's actually nice to have those things and have documents where we keep track of the ideas and the bugs and make sure that we actually prioritize these things. So we do kind of try to work like we were a big company, but we're two people. And it actually works, I think, most of the time. And then sometimes like, I would like to do this. Yeah, do that. Okay.
Yes.
Then we see what happens.
But it is much of the way it's very pragmatic. It's
yeah, it is. But that's also because we're two.
Yeah, we're just two people, so we can like, I don't know really how to answer the question. I don't know. But there was follow-up. The transition. Yeah. Yes.
No.
The transition. I mean, I don't remember much from that period, but I remember that we worked a lot next to our full-time job. Before we transitioned, and then after the transition, it was more like, because then we actually had time, and we like didn't feel bad about spending so much time. So it's I don't, other than that, I don't know if it was. I mean.
No, and then we maybe achieved more. Like we managed to do more in the time.
Yeah, totally managed to do more.
Had more time, so that was kind of nice to get that feeling.
Did it all happen in Corona time?
No, that's after Corona. It was last year.
I know, but the idea and the need and everything.
No, it was at the beginning of last year because of I had already been toying around with some of the data because it's always been a passion of mine, the whole energy thing, and I already toyed a little bit around with just my own little app for smart charging my own car back then, and I didn't really get the time to do it properly. And then when that app that I used before disappeared, I was like, okay, I can do my own thing, super simple, quick and dirty, and that's So it happened quite quickly. It only took a week to develop the first version, but it was super simple. It only had one feature. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question. When you're building an edit or when you're building a feature, when do you say, okay, fine, it's good enough to ship, even if there's like a small bug, when do you say, like, okay, it's good enough to ship? Then you like go back and say, okay, I'll just work on polishing this.
Yeah, great. I think in product development, that is one of the toughest things to do, I think.
I think it's more like, for you, it's more like a gut feeling. Like you get like a sense that this is good enough. I can push it. I want it out of here.
But also the other way around. I also just need this. We can improve this a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just add this little feature.
Yeah,
totally.
Just to give you a little context, I've been stuck in kind of development hell, as they call it, for the last 4 months. I've been trying to push this out hard.
Yeah.
And I just.
But it's.
I'm like, it's good enough to ship. Next morning I wake up.
But when is it good enough? Like that's also.
I think that thing. It helps if you have like it helps. I'm not saying that everyone should do this, but I've definitely tried situations where it helps that before you even start developing, you have like a headline of what it is we need to do and what problems are we trying to solve here, and also in that process try to like shape that down to as little as possible, because then when you get 3 months later, you can compare and say, are we above or below this limit? That's one way. And I mean, I don't know. It's for us. It's more been like as you say, a gut feeling thing, but
also kind of talking about what is the MVP. Like every time we start getting new ideas, like
we talk about it. Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, we have to do this list for this feature, which is this is nice to have.
It's also
and then all those could not go into the build before we release it.
So do you decide, okay, this is nice to have?
Yeah. And that's every time we come up with thing. Oh, it would be nice to do this as well. Then we say, okay, is this a nice to have or is this a need to have?
And then they often go to the nice to have. And
yes.
then we'll
sometimes it transitions. Yes.
And you make that decision based on research.
We also do it based on research.
On user testing. Yes. So we do a lot of user testing, and that's thanks to Anna, because she is really the master of that. And for instance, for the smart charging feature, we've been testing it for almost a month now, and we've interviewed users both like as part of the onboarding and as follow-up interviews of how it was after they've been using it. And so that also gives a big insight into what it is that people are expecting, what is it that they are liking, what are they not liking, and from that you can also calibrate, okay, what is very important to have and what is not so important to have, in my opinion. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now you have so many features and so many plans, that's like super impressive.
Yes.
But you blew up about a year ago,
yes.
Right? So what set of features did you have then?
Yes.
Was it like
was actually
MVP or
I would
something bigger?
Well, that's a matter of definition, but it was pretty simple. It was the prices, the basic consumption data, and the energy mix data. I think it was those three actually at that time.
You didn't have any predictions or any of that, like advanced?
No, that came later. Yeah, that came in the winter last year.
So you were just using public data.
But the reason it blew up was because the only thing that mattered at that time, or the main thing, was prices. Because the prices went crazy, so people just needed an easy way to follow the prices. And so that was by far the most used feature, and that's the main feature. And then that onboarded a lot of people to be more conscious about their consumption. So then they started tracking their consumption, and then we at least have the feeling that the whole awareness about energy consumption has changed a lot since last year at that time, because so many more people are aware, but it's more top of mind now than it was back then. So there's been a huge shift in mindshare when it comes to that. Yes?
Could you maybe touch a little technical?
Yes, please.
Your app setup, your experience with SwiftUI,
yeah.
On iOS version, the APIs, and
yeah.
Maybe even your, I don't know if you can touch on your whole iOS app setup with the architecture in it.
Yeah. So it's the first app that I have done that is pure SwiftUI, because like I suppose many of you, we've worked on apps that have some heritage. They are old, so they started out as UI kit, and then we have slowly creeped in some SwiftUI here and there to play with it. That's been what I've also done before. So doing a pure SwiftUI app was super exciting, super challenging. But Swift UI is developing a lot, so it gets better every year. But even last year there was a lot of things that was also because last year I was targeting iOS 15, so there were still things I couldn't use in 16, and yeah. So even though I know that's not something is bad compared to having to target iOS 13 or something, but yeah. Anyway, the architecture is very simple compared to what I've done in the past with UIKit. It's just basic MVVM most of the way. Recently, because I'm now going to target iOS 16, which means that we can now use the whole navigation stack paradigm, which, because in the past I've done a lot of coordinator, yes, which just makes, programmatic.
Hosting the controllers or coordinators with Swift UI as well?
No, there was coordinators with UIKit. Yeah. So I've done a lot of like basically all navigation was programmatic, the stuff I've done. But then when I did this app to begin with, it was all navigation link stuff, which like once you get just a few steps deep, it's not nice. So now with navigation stack, part of the app is kind of coordinator. There's at least a router that, like, based on an enum can route to different places. So that's pretty advanced. Everything considered. I hope that I can spread it out to more parts of the app now. Anything else worth mentioning? I mean, it's actually surprisingly simple compared to all the apps I've worked on.
Yeah. So since you have your data coming from
Yeah.
different sources,
Yeah.
I would imagine you have this raw data coming from Sweden, from Norway,
Yeah.
from Denmark, and then you map it
Yeah.
all into this one
Yes.
single model.
Yes.
So can you maybe touch a little bit about
Yeah,
this whole
actually-
process and
Yeah.
a little bit of your dependencies?
Yeah, so many dependencies, and the app, because it started as a hobby project, there was only the app to begin with. There was no like common backend, so basically implemented all the data sources directly into the app, and yeah, I've never had so many data sources in a single app than I had. And then slowly because then we wanted to send push notifications, so we had to have a backend, and then that's when I started doing a backend, and then I've slowly been migrating data sources over to the backend, also because if we want to do things on more platforms, then it's easier to have on the backend. But other than that, it's very basic. I'm just wrapping I even forgot what it's called now, the data task thing, and like in Swift to download data and just codable, and it's super simple. It's not anything crazy. I also did a lot of image async loading in the past. It's not necessary for this app, so none of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So last two questions.
So there is a high portion of users in Denmark, not as high as an iOS, but there is a high portion of users are using Android.
Yes.
And how high that in your priorities?
Yeah. So long story short, because it is a long story, we did have an Android version twice, actually. But for many reasons, it obviously didn't end as we had hoped. So right now we only have an iOS version. And so the reason behind that is I'm an iOS developer. I'm a native iOS developer. I'm not a cross-platform guy. I'm just not. I like native more. So I'm not, and I don't have the bandwidth to also do Kotlin native on the side. So being that at least in the Nordics where we are right now, there's a lot of iOS users. We can live with it. It's okay. What happens in the future, we'll see. Maybe we'll find a solution. It's also about the whole revenue thing, because adding more people cuts in, and so there's a lot of parameters into that. Right now we are trying to make do with what we have, and then we'll see what happens. I don't know. Yes.
So final off topic. What did
Yes.
Tim say?
Yes.
How was it?
Oh, he was very laid back. Yeah. That was a super cool experience. The setup was relatively simple. We got so some guy from Apple reached out to us a few weeks in advance. A PR guy asked if we wanted to present and demo our app to a very, very senior person from Apple, and I was like, sure. And we were not allowed to be told who it was, and then we had to prepare what we wanted to demo, and blah blah blah. Time goes on, and then we find out also that they basically. So he's touring Europe, as you saw, and one of the headlines he was touring with was like the whole sustainability and Mother Nature and blah blah blah. And so when he came to Copenhagen, one of the things they wanted to see was like what apps are happening in Europe in terms of sustainability, and that we apparently came up in the discussion, and so they invited us, and then we were 4 there. We were too good to go, us, and then one from Sweden and one from Norway. And we basically got to demo and like talk back and forth for like 10 minutes. It was super quick, and the time passed super fast. Didn't get to talk that much.
No, I think they asked about like.
He asked about data sources actually.
Yeah, he asked about data sources, and also like our business model. Like, how did we earn money on this? And
Lisa also asked about something. It's a little bit of a blur, to be honest, because it was pretty crazy. But it was super awesome, and yeah.
Yeah, I think their conclusion was that the solutions that we showed Too Good To Go, and our solution and the solutions from Germany and Sweden, they all showed concrete examples of what we could do to get into a more sustainable future. And I think they liked how like simple the concepts were, and how we used App Store to distribute it to a lot of people and across also
use all the technologies. He's with his very southern accent. He was very happy when we mentioned all the like native technologies we used. Oh, that's awesome! That's why we built them.
You like that?
Yeah. I must have been happy that you used subscriptions.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
he liked money.
Yes, yes, for sure. Yeah, it was super awesome.
Yeah, they seemed impressed.
Yeah.
And we were impressed as well.
Yeah.
Told him, so that was great.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.